I've been really intentional about connecting with my intuition and my personal inner knowing lately. How I've been doing that? Close kept my journaling practice. My journaling practice is very close to me. If I don't do morning pages, I try to write at least at some point during the day. When you are starting your spiritual journey, your spiritual practice, it is so important to remain grounded. That's something that I feel like a lot of people skip past, a lot of people don't try to pay attention to, but it's one of the most important things that you can do when starting and continuing any type of spiritual practice. A lot of people want to partake in plant medicine because that's known to kind of skip you ahead a few levels. The issue with partaking in plant medicine in any case, and especially too early on your spiritual journey, is that it can give you a insight on a surplus of information that you may not sincerely know how to integrate, how to absorb, and how to understand. So when people suffer from psychosis or maybe a mental illness after doing these plant medicines, sometimes your body, your mind isn't necessarily ready to absorb that information. A lot of people say you can have a bad shroom trip, right? You can. Maybe you are supposed to learn something from it. That is so valid. But why why put yourself through the difficulty of having done that when you can prepare, you can prep, you can read, you can write, you can meditate? Because the thing with these plant medicines, you can get to that point naturally to a certain extent, but it takes more work. It takes more attention to get to that point than the hour to couple hours that you'll experience when you are partaking in plant medicine, right? Plant medicine, you're going to get a download, probably several. You're going to get that experience of, oh my gosh, understand everything. But do you need that every single time? Not necessarily. And you run the risk of it. You run the risk on relying on it too heavily. And you also run the risk of you kind of could set yourself back, because it's like when you work out at the gym and you're working out, it's like, oh, I'm pumping iron today. I got my little pre-workout. Like, you feel like, yeah, I'm doing it. But then when you get home, your body's sore, you pull something because you went too far, too fast, and you didn't allow your body the proper attention to acclimate to that new experience, that new level. The same can be said for spirituality. If you overstretch and overextend yourself with spirituality, you run the risk of having some type of injury. So my suggestion is to instill a grounding practice. A grounding practice can look like journaling. If journaling is not something that resonates with you because you're scared that somebody will read your journal, something of that sort, I will say do voice notes, do personal video diaries, have a meditation practice. Meditation does not have to look like I'm sitting here with my hands like this. That's a wonderful way to meditate. But if you are not in the habit of meditating, that might be difficult for you. I started with guided meditations on YouTube, and I think it also has some on Apple Music. So I started with that, and then I kind of shifted into being able to do it myself, which is sitting in silence or sitting with some type of meditative music in the background, like rain sounds, something like that. Meditating outside is something I really like to do, because not only does meditating in the sunlight, it feels different. It definitely does have impacts that I've experienced. So I would suggest meditating in the sun, meditating with a crystal. I like to meditate with moonstone is a good one. But honestly, I consistently meditate with selenite. I kind of meditate with these every day. I have this one, which is like a spiral design, kind of like a unicorn, a horn in my opinion. But I also have like I have these raw selenite wands. I love selenite because it's kind of transparent. It has a nice shine, and I definitely feel the spiritual power of this. I don't know. You could believe that crystals don't have any type of impact. I feel like it's proven that they do have a frequency that you can feel, but everybody different. For me, I like meditating with crystals. I have one in each hand, and I'll hold it while I'm meditating, or I might place one at the heart center, something like that. But I like meditating with crystals, and it also gives your hands something to kind of focus on. You can feel the weight of something in your hands, and that can be grounding as well. If meditating, your mind can float around a lot, so sometimes it's helpful to have sensory things that you can pull your mind back to. For me, crystals are that thing. I also like meditating with incense. I like having incense burning while I'm meditating because it also, again, gives your mind something to connect to. If you smell the incense, you can kind of focus on that. If you feel the weight of the crystals in your hand, you can kind of focus on that, and it can help you from trying to fidget around too much. Because when meditating, you do want to have a certain type of stillness. Other type of meditations can be dance. You can literally dance, and that can be a meditation practice. The thing is with meditating is that you don't want to think too much. So whatever gets you out of thinking and into the body, into stillness, into a type of mental clarity is going to be helpful. So when we think about dance, we don't want to think about dance in a way of like, how do I look? You want to think about how does it feel? Like, you want to think about moving your body. You want to think about being loose and fluid to that capacity, right? You want to get so much in your body that you don't have to think about how you look. You don't have to think about, are you doing it well? But instead, you're seeing how your body feels. And in turn, that can give you mental clarity about how you've been feeling about yourself outside of other people's perception of you. Playing an instrument can be meditative. If you're not necessarily trying to learn a new song, but instead maybe you're playing through stuff you already know, you have to remove the part of performance. Performance takes you out of any type of meditative state. If you're painting, you have to paint and get into the flow. Getting into the flow is a kind of meditative state that doesn't require you to sit there, eyes closed, no talking, no movement. Moving meditation is kind of akin to you being in the flow state. You get into the flow state by creating or interacting without performing for any type of perceived audience, or worrying about looking good or doing it well. You want to lessen those worries and the importance of those worries while you're trying to meditate. Now, when you're practicing, maybe you want to know if you're doing it good or not because you're practicing to get better. But meditating and practicing, I will consider those two different types of intentions. So decide what intention you want to go in with and then do it according to that. Other things that I think that is so important when you're entering a spiritual practice is not relying too heavily on your spiritual teachers and guides. Now, everybody's spiritual practice is different. What I think can trip some people up is finding people that they love how they say the word and they love how they explain things and break it down, but you are valuing that person's perspective a little bit too much. You want to take what resonates and leave the rest. You want to appreciate them for being a teacher and a guide and appreciate the words and reflections that they may have to share, but you don't want to rely too heavily on them because at a certain point they are still another person that had to learn all of that, so you can also learn it as well. I don't want to get stuck too much in the one divine leader and everybody else y'all don't have the insight, so y'all can never be on my level. That's when it gets a little murky. Now, some people are so studied and they have been spiritual. If you want to think about a spiritual guru, you could be doing that for decades or something like that, but always find your own understanding of these spiritual meanings and practices, because if you rely on someone else too heavily, then it can be like another church situation where You could read the Bible yourself and have your own understanding of it yourself, or you could go to this pastor, this preacher, and they kind of give you their interpretation and how they want to spin it. You always need to return back to self and understand, well, what do I think about this? What do I appreciate about their teachings? What do I find valuable? What do I really resonate with? And what don't know if I agree with completely. And then you explore why you don't agree, because maybe you just need to evolve more to understand it, because maybe you still have limited beliefs, or maybe that truly doesn't resonate with you because it's not something that you want to believe in. You need to know yourself more deeply for that. And I find that you know yourself deeply when you kind of do those reflections and you have enough stillness to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That being said, I would say also consider the source. Try, when you see signs and everything, because when you start doing spirituality, it's like, oh my gosh, everything is a sign, everything means something. And it can, but it also doesn't have to. You don't want to slip into taking yourself out of this human experience by trying to find a meaning in every single little thing, to the point where you can't even move forward because you are having some type of fear of missing a sign. Okay, so you want to just have a level that you come back down that is neutral. It's like, okay, we're chilling, things are good. Reading, I find, is also helpful when we think about spiritual teachers. I'll say doing a healthy amount of reading and then reflecting on those readings is helpful. I don't know if I would just take everything as an undeniable truth right off the bat. Just have a healthy curiosity and don't be afraid to question. Don't be afraid to explore. And don't be afraid to look for further understanding. But I'll say look at several sources, right? A book that I've really been enjoying lately is Women Who Run with the Wolves. And a text like this is pretty thick. It's a bit dense. And I will say take your time with spiritual knowledge. When you first start, you're excited, you want to know everything immediately, you want to know all these powers. It's like, what's my intuitive power? Am I clairaudient? Am I clairsentient? Am I relax. When we think about spiritual practices, it's like, I want to manifest everything to me. I just want to manifest instantly. Okay, but also let's think about protecting yourself. If you think about having an aura field or anything like that, instead of trying to strengthen it and impact others, protect yourself. Because when you strengthen any type of intuitive ability, when you strengthen, that means you're going to be more sensitive to the shifts of other people, of the environment, even of yourself. If you don't have your proper grounding practice set up, that can be very overwhelming and also very draining. So when we think about having a spiritual practice, we want to think about, in that practice, having a very solid grounding routine. So this book is one that I've really been enjoying. It's one that talks about connecting with your wild nature as it comes to your instincts, and trusting that you have an inner knowing that, if listened to, can guide you, right? So you want to think about being guided by yourself and having a clear mind. I feel like this book is also really good for women, just because it reminds you that we all have intuitive powers, but with women, our power has kind of been diminished, or it's been stifled. The aim has been to stifle women's intuitive power and inner knowing. This book just reminds you that what you feel is real, and it will be in your best interest to follow that at times. Other books that's I feel like it's just good to read when you're starting the spiritual journey: The Power of Now. I'm kind of rereading this as we speak, and it just talks about being present. It talks about, like, not necessarily taking things personal, because everybody is oftentimes projecting their own ideals about life and people and places and things onto others. So once you understand that, you kind of will take things less personal, because it's like, you're not even responding to me right now. You're responding to the idea of who you think I am, which may or may not be accurate to the truth. This is a good one. A New Earth. I think this book started my spiritual journey. This book talks a bit about ego. It talks about happiness. It talks about forgiveness and the importance of that. It talks about peace. This book, I feel like it's good to start when you're starting your spiritual journey. It is a good brick to the foundation. The Four Agreements. This is a very easy read in my opinion. And the Four Agreements is just giving you, again, that foundation to move by. When we think about our words, speaking with integrity, speaking with honesty, moving from love, not taking things personal. This is a good book to read when you're starting your spiritual journey. Now, the last one I want to offer is The Alchemist. I feel like lately I've been seeing people kind of talk down on The Alchemist about it being too simple, and I feel like that's the good thing about it. I feel like it being simple is a good way for you to understand the concept that this book is trying to present to you. This book, it follows the main character, which is he's going on a journey to follow his heart's dream, his heart's purpose, his life purpose, however you want to call it. But it kind of shows the challenges he has along the way, and how as long as you listen to what you feel like your purpose is, the world and life and your experience all kind of help you get to the point of success. Maybe not success, but fulfillment. It'll help you get to the point of fulfillment as long as you listen and follow and move with a genuine nature. It's an easy read, but I think that's a good thing because it helps you understand concepts that can feel a little bit too out there. It simplifies it in that regard. Of course, eating clean is helpful, or just being intentional about what you're eating, because I like to indulge a bit. I be eating fast food, like what? But I try not to overeat it, or I try to balance it with, okay, am I eating enough fruit? Am I drinking enough water? Am I eating enough greens? Not to overindulge, but I don't like to limit my pleasure experiences when it comes to, again, like if I want to eat something, I want to eat it, and I feel like I'm not eating refined sugar. I'm above that. Personally, my spiritual practice is telling me to eat some refined sugar sometime. Like what? The only thing is, when you are eating clean, I find that for me, my intuition naturally boosts. Any type of downloads of like information I have, that naturally boosts, because everything is like you have a clear, clean vessel where things can absorb into it much more clearly. Because if you think about eating fast food, sometimes that could dysregulate your system, like your mind. You may have some brain fog, or maybe your stomach has you don't feel energized. Instead, you might feel weighed down, because fast food is not really good for us. Any type of greasy foods, fried foods, it's gonna weigh your system down, and in turn I feel like it impacts your strength of intuition. It doesn't have to, but I find that it feels much more clear, much more direct when maybe I've done a fruit fast, or I've limited my fast food consumption. And I feel like the impact in a couple days, it's like, oh, I'm feeling real clear, clean, and under control right now. So that's a few things. Just when you're starting your spiritual journey, make the effort to remain grounded. Make the effort to be protected. A simple thing you can do is have your incense. You can do an incense cleanse over yourself. You can burn a white candle and ask for protection and guidance, right? A white candle, when you're starting a spiritual practice, or even throughout your spiritual practice, a white candle is flexible in terms of what it can be used for. I find that it's good to kind of always have. And a white candle is good for you could ask for some mental clarity. I like to ask for protection and divine guidance, and then burn a little white candle and know that it's burning for that intention. And that's another way you can ground yourself and remain protected while you are diving into these practices. I'll say start slow and steady, because going too fast, too soon can help to dysregulate you. So yeah, I guess this would be like a part 1 because I don't know. I just wanted to share that. I just wanted to share a little bit of that knowledge. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Hope this was helpful, and see you next video. Bye.